in 5,000 Americans live to be 100. And chances are, if you do live to be 100, you're going to experience a host of health problems and mobility issues. Welcome back to Return to Eden. I'm Kendra Hann, fitness and nutrition specialist, here again with Jamie Woodle, integrative nutrition health coach and master of health science education. Today, we're going to dive into the 9 tips that you can enact right now to increase your longevity. Imagine being over 100 years old and still able to ride your bike every day or even chop wood. Riding a bike at over 100 years old. Can you imagine?
It blows my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are 5 regions around the world where there is a relatively large number of centenarians or people at or over 100 years old, and they've coined these as blue zones.
So blue zones, how did that come about, that term?
Well, there was a team that was put together that was inspired by some demographic work that had been done previously. And these teams were put together by National Geographic and the National Institute on Aging to go out and look at the different areas around the globe where people are living the longest.
If I'm understanding correctly then, these blue zones are places where people live longer with a higher quality of life.
Absolutely. And so the researchers went out and they examined these different regions and they did interviews and they experienced their lifestyle. So the 5 areas around the globe, if you're curious, include Icaria, Greece, Loma Linda, California, right here in the United States, Sardinia, Italy, Okinawa, Japan, and Nicoya, Costa Rica. And through the realization of these similarities throughout the different regions, they came up with 9 habits that we can do to help encourage longevity. They call it the Power 9. And number 1 is move naturally, whether it's chasing after grandchildren or it's gardening or enjoying a hobby with friends. So they may not do exercise like when we think exercise in America, it is going to the gym for 30 minutes to an hour and
Calisthenics
and jogging.
Yeah.
But for them, it's not necessarily any of that. It is just constantly moving their bodies and not sitting very much. And that brings us to point 2, which is purpose. When you get to be older and you retire, what is going to be your why? What are you living for? What's going to drive you and get you out of bed every morning? The people that they interviewed, the centenarians or the people over 100 that they studied in these different regions, they all had a purpose, a why. In our society, a lot of the social equity really revolves around the younger generation, maybe 20s and 30s. Mm-hmm. But in theirs, the social equity lies within the older generations. The centenarians have a lot of social equity. And here in America, we all work for retirement, right? We can't wait till we retire and we save up and we dream of this time when we don't have to work anymore. Well, in these cultures, they don't even have a word for retirement. Their roles change as time goes on. And they don't retire. So, for example, my dad retired to the Lazy Boy when he finished his work at the tie plant, and that's where he stayed.
I find it interesting that in America, we see this reward for all of our hard work being a sedentary lifestyle of retirement, like with your father. Whereas in these blue zones, there's this natural evolution of their lives where instead of the reward being, oh, I get to sit in my Lazy Boy or, oh, I get to ride in an RV across the country, it's, I get to devote time to my passions. I get to really immerse myself in gardening or raising my grandchildren or teaching my family recipes. So it's just a really interesting contrast, I think. What a difference that is between those societies and American society where so often the standard is to hide away our elder generations. You know, they don't live in the home or stay with their families. They're in residential care facilities, they're in retirement communities, and really kept very segregated from the younger generations.
That does seem to be more common in our culture. But there in these blue zone regions, the elders are kept in the home quite often or close to home. They help raise the younger generations. They care for the children. They're still doing chores around the house. You might have great grandma helping with meals or grandpa out there chopping wood. And so there's definitely a difference there. And of the Power 9, the third point is downshift. The people in these different cultures have incorporated natural de-stressing moments in their life, whether it be through prayer time or social time, maybe gardening. They're just natural moments that happen throughout the day that help a person to de-stress. And we don't get a lot of that in our American culture and our lifestyle.
That's a fact. Definitely not a lot of downshifting in the world. But again, that goes back to the point you made where it's most of the social equity is given to people between the ages of 25 and 30 in America. And I think that probably plays into that as well. We see being overworked and overstressed as a virtue here.
We do. And that ends up being very toxic as well, because the stress leads to this chronic systemic inflammation. And it's crucial that we start incorporating moments to de-stress and to unwind.
Yeah, prioritizing mental health is something that I absolutely agree is something we should focus on a lot more, along with making those dietary changes. Part of that is the way we view food. Like in America, food is entertainment. And we had been discussing earlier that in these places, food is love, food is family, it's quality time. So I'm sure that has a massive impact on their health overall.
Oh, sure. When you look at America, we are running from task to task. We have to, maybe we get off work and then we have to go by a drive-through to quickly just put something in our kids' stomachs before going to the next activity, whether it's dance or soccer or baseball or whatever it is. Or you wait till you get home, and even then there's not enough time before bedtime to spend an hour and a half chopping vegetables and making a delicious stew. You really have to work fast.
So when it comes to food, what are the most glaring differences between the types of food that they choose and the types of food that we as Americans choose, standard anyway?
Well, there's really a stark difference. They eat largely plant-based. Now, not vegan necessarily. They do eat some meat, maybe once or twice a week. But they eat a lot of things like beans and vegetables, and they also eat slower, they use smaller plates, and they don't really go back for seconds.
So tell me about the 80% rule.
Oh, I love this. So the 80% rule, this has to do with how people in blue zones tend to eat naturally. They tend to stop eating when their stomachs are about 80% full, meaning they do not make it a custom to overstuff yourself. And it could be, and I am just hypothesizing here, they value and respect each other so much. Maybe they see it as being selfish to take so much food and to overstuff yourself.
Well, and it takes a long time for your tummy to tell your brain, hey, I'm full. So I think the way that they approach food there, they view it as love. They view it as family. So they're slower with their meal. They spend time together. They have conversation. Maybe they pray together. And I think taking that extra time to really experience it together would help with recognizing when you're full before you're over full.
Absolutely. And it's not the same way in these other cultures. They tend to eat a larger breakfast and lunch and a smaller dinner. And they also don't eat late. So they're eating early evening, maybe late afternoon, and they don't eat again the rest of the night. And of the Power 9.6, and this is a little controversial, but they've labeled it wine at 5. It's important to note that the wine that these people are drinking in 4 of the 5 blue zones, because remember, the 5th one is Loma Linda, California, and they are largely Seventh-day Adventists, so they do not consume any form of alcohol.
Okay.
But in the other cultures, there's generally a fermented drink that they enjoy, a small amount once a day that is very high in polyphenols. In fact, in Sardinia, Italy, they make a wine from grapes that they grow right there, and it is one of the highest beverages in polyphenols.
So again, I want to pose the question about how does faith factor in? And we discussed how important belonging is. Can you expand on that a little?
Yes, another similarity in their cultures is that they have a sense of belonging. And most of the centenarians that they interviewed all were part of a strong faith-based community.
So they belong to themselves in that they are able to devote time to their hobbies. They belong to their families in that they're able to be near to each other. And then also they belong to their communities when they participate in walking to brunch or going to church.
Absolutely. And when you look around in America, I think there's a lot of people looking to belong. I think there is a desire to want to be part of a community or a group. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved. We want to be with people that we have a lot of common ground with because we have that desire for belonging. And along those same lines, is that they put family first. Family before anything. They stay close together. They live near each other. They take care of each other. They are essentially one very large unit. And that is something completely different than what we have here in America for most people.
Yeah, it is very isolating to live in America with the pace that we're expected to keep up in terms of work and volunteering and parenting and not letting your kids miss out on literally anything. I can totally see the value in having a large connected family.
And the final similarity is called right tribe. The people in these cultures tend to surround themselves with people who are of the same mindset and have the same healthy behaviors. And that makes a huge impact. In fact, even the Bible talks about how bad company corrupts good character. So your longevity in your life and your quality of life have a lot to do with who you surround yourself with.
Some research is saying that enacting these changes in your life in a real way could extend your longevity by as much as 10 or 12 years. And I know that there are communities that are trying to make long-term lasting changes within themselves to promote this longevity, right?
Absolutely. The tricky thing here in America is a lot of the responsibility is put on us as individuals. When our system is set up against our desire to have healthy choices and make these behavioral changes to increase our longevity and our health. So for example, you might go to the grocery store and you realize you're hungry and you're at the checkout line. What are your options? Probably not healthy last minute. If you need to hit a restaurant very quickly before taking the kids to soccer, what food is available that you can feed them quickly? So you can see how our system plays a huge role in our choices and decision making and has a huge influence on our overall health.
Yeah, and the value is so often placed on convenience here over health that it's almost impossible to find a healthy option if you're going to a drive-through, for instance.
Absolutely. So the same team that did the research and talked about the blue zones and shared that information with us, they went back out to find communities that were making healthy behavior changes that were not just effective, but long lasting. And they summarize some things that we can do or advocate for to create system-wide change in our local communities.
So, taking from these discoveries, here are a few things that you can advocate for in your community to make system-wide changes.
You can advocate for more opportunities for natural movement. So in your community, that could be more sidewalks, more walking paths, more community gardens, opportunities to get out of the house and move your body naturally.
And healthier restaurant options would be another one, right?
Yeah. Advocating for maybe a farmer's market to be held a couple times, more accessibility, maybe in rural areas. You could advocate or talk to your local grocery store to offer more organic items or maybe a wider variety of fruits and vegetables.
We are creatures of convenience. The best way that you can advocate for longevity in your community is by making it easier to make the healthier choices.
And that's why we as individuals need to make healthy choices convenient for ourselves. For example, don't bring junk food into the house. And if you find it too tempting to stop by your favorite fast food place, or maybe there's a donut shop that is a little too tempting, you might consider driving a different route to and from work and just avoiding those streets altogether. I grew up in a house where we would eat ice cream after lunch and dinner.
Which sounds like a lot of fun, but probably not something that we should be doing all of the time.
No, it's really not healthy. Or, if you tend to eat a lot of chips, you probably don't want to have chips in the house all the time if it's going to tempt you. If you really want something like a treat, just leave it for the occasion when you're already out or you're going out to dinner. But don't bring it into your home where it's going to tempt you every day. So making it a special occasion thing, a legitimate treat instead of having it in the house can help a lot.
Well, and like we discussed previously, meal prepping. Picking one of the days that you have off to chop all of your vegetables and have them, the fruits and vegetables, washed and chopped and ready to go in your refrigerator. Because for the same reasons we need to make convenience of healthy choices in our community a priority. We need to do that within our homes as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and viewers, for joining us today again on Return to Eden. We are all out of time. If you have any questions about today's program or suggestions on topics you'd like to see Jamie and I discuss further, please send us a message, give us a call, or comment below. And we hope you have a blessed day.